The beautiful continent of Africa is blessed with an abundance of natural resources, raw materials, precious metals, and fertile soil. Africa comprises 54 countries, with over 1.3 billion people, producing $2.2 trillion in nominal GDP. The largest drivers of the economy are agriculture, natural resources, and trade. In 2013, it was the fastest-growing continent and remains a powerhouse of resources, ideas, and innovation. With consistent growth and improvement, it is estimated that the African economy will reach a GDP of $29 trillion by the year 2050, playing a major role in the global economy. The World Bank expects most of the countries on this continent to reach middle-income status, with a GDP per capita of at least $1,000 within the next decade. Here we discuss the 10 wealthiest countries in Africa 2022 and 2023 and the nature of their economies. All figures are based on the latest annual report by the International Monetary Fund (IMF) and the World Bank using GDP current prices in US dollars. Number 1. Nigeria. This West African country, with a population of over 200 million citizens, makes up an essential part of the African economy. With a GDP just over $510 billion, Nigeria holds the position of the richest country in Africa. The sizable GDP is mainly driven by finance, transport, infrastructure, tourism, and an abundance of crude oil. The country records around 1.6 million barrels of crude oil a day, according to OPEC, making it the largest exporter of crude oil in Africa. These petroleum exports make up 10% of the total GDP and over 80% of the export sector revenue. In addition to petroleum, Nigeria has an abundance of raw materials and natural resources, contributing to the region's wealth. These include coal, limestone, zinc, lead, tin, natural gas, niobium, and iron ore. There is also sufficient fertile land for agriculture, which is responsible for over 20% of the GDP, producing cocoa and rubber. The large population have helped to propel Nigeria as the largest consumer retailer in Africa, and the digitally aware residents have contributed to the country's fast-growing tech sector. Number 2. Egypt. This ancient land in northern Africa held the spot of the richest country in Africa for many years. However, the economy suffered severely and foreign exchange reserves tumbled following the 2011 revolution during the Arab uprising. With the most recent GDP of more than $400 billion, Egypt now holds the second spot on this rich Africa list. Economic activities have improved and stabilized over the last decade to experience positive economic growth. The government recently concluded an economic reform program alongside the IMF aimed at reforming and bolstering the economy. Real GDP growth reached 5.6% in 2019, up from 5.3% in 2018. The country has also seen unemployment levels fall, an improvement in foreign exchange reserves, higher export of goods and services, and a bolstered tourism sector, all contributing to its development. Number 3. South Africa. This southernmost country in Africa is another significant player on the continent, is the third richest African country. With a highly developed economy, advanced infrastructure, and a GDP of over $400 billion, the country is considered one of the fastest developing countries in the world. Often referred to as the Rainbow Nation, South Africa is one of the only countries on this list that is not reliant on a single source of revenue. The country has a good mix of mining, manufacturing, financial services, and tourism. It is also abundant in natural resources and raw material exports, the likes of gold, diamonds, platinum, coal, and iron ore. It is one of the world's largest exporters of these commodities, particularly gold and platinum. The country is world-renowned as a major tourist destination and places a lot of emphasis on tourism as a part of its economy. Number 4. Algeria. The largest country on the continent, found in the north, Algeria comes in at fourth place on this list of wealthiest countries in Africa. Boasting a significant economy and available infrastructure and a GDP of over $190 billion, the country achieved a notable achievement of reducing poverty by 20% within the last 20 years. Crude oil reserves are abundant in this developing Saharan country, and the economy is heavily reliant on it. So much so that hydrocarbons, oil and natural gas make up almost 70% of the income of the country. A recent discovery of more crude oil reserves have boosted this rapidly growing industrial country. Other sectors that make up the Algerian economy include agriculture, industrial works, commercial services, and construction. The country is also one of the largest suppliers of ammonia in Africa. Number 5. Morocco. With a GDP of over $130 billion, Morocco comes in at number 5 on this list of richest countries in Africa. The economy of this country in North Africa is versatile and stable, experiencing growth in a number of industries over the last decade. It is the second richest non-oil producing African country. The country's economy is driven by mining and manufacturing. 30% of Morocco's GDP comes from industry, 15% from agriculture, and 55% from services. This is supplemented by a growing tourism sector, with locals being welcoming of tourists and the government placing a strong emphasis on attracting visitors to the country that is well known for its attractions. Morocco relies heavily on its agriculture and is the third largest producer of phosphorus in the world. The country has benefited greatly from its diversified exports, not limited to electrical equipment, vehicles, and vehicle parts. Additionally, the telecom and textile industries bring a lot to the economy. Number 6. Angola. The country of Angola has one of the biggest reserves of raw materials in Africa. Essentially, it could be higher up on this list of Africa's richest nations. However, due to resource mismanagement and internal corruption, the economy of the country has been negatively affected. With a GDP of over $124 billion, it comes in at number 6 on this list. Angola's economy is built on oil, with large reserves of natural gas and oil, making up over 1/3 of its GDP. The production and export of crude oil contributes significantly to foreign exchange. In fact, 90% of the nation's revenue in the export sector comes from the sale of crude oil. Other noteworthy exports include diamonds and cargo ships. Agriculture is also expected to become an important sector for the economy going forward. Number 7. Kenya. Kenya, a country in East Africa well known for its vast landscapes and wildlife, is next on Africa's richest country list, having a GDP of over $100 billion. This nation, with its stable living conditions, an established coffee and tea sector, and rapidly growing agricultural sector, is the wealthiest in Southeast and Central Africa. Historically, its coastline has been home to a number of strategic ports for Asian and Arabian traders for centuries, becoming a trade hub for the region. The Kenyan economy is not built around the oil sector like so many other countries on this list, but still experiences diverse positive growth. Number 8. Ethiopia. Found in the Horn of Africa, the landlocked country of Ethiopia, split by the Great Rift Valley, is the 8th richest country in Africa. With archaeological finds dating back over 3 million years, this ancient land is famous for being the place where the coffee bean first originated. The nation is the highest coffee and honey producer in Africa, making up a large portion of the country's foreign exchange. Other exports include legumes, oily seeds, and cut flowers. The GDP of more than $100 billion comprises agriculture, construction, manufacturing, tourism, food processing, resources, and energy. Agriculture is the region's most promising resource, making up over 40% of the GDP, 60% of exports, and more than 80% of total employment. Number 9. Tanzania. With a GDP of over $75 billion, Tanzania just makes this list of wealthiest countries on the African continent, coming in at number 9. Known as the home of some of the continent's most famous national parks and of course Kilimanjaro, the country comprises a lower-middle mixed-income economy. The country's economy is largely based on agriculture, contributing almost 25% to GDP, and employing half of the workforce. Industries are a growing component of the economy, which accounts for almost 30% of GDP and includes mining, manufacturing, construction, electricity, natural gas, and water supply. The main exports include gold, coffee, cashew nuts, and cotton. Number 10. Ghana. Rounding up this list of the top 10 richest African countries is Ghana, with a GDP just shy of $74 billion over the last year. Ghana, found in West Africa, has an economy that is both diverse and rich in resources. The country was the first in sub-Saharan Africa to break free from colonial rule as well as the first to achieve the target of having extreme poverty. The nation has attracted foreign investment due to its overall positive business environment, experienced economic growth of just over 6% in the last 2 years. Services contributes to around 50% of the Ghanaian GDP and employ almost 30% of the workforce. Industry is the next biggest contributor to GDP at just under 25%, followed by agriculture. Ghana has an abundance of natural resources, helping to fuel an economic boom. Gold is the country's main export. This is followed by petroleum, and together they make up 50% of the country's foreign exchange. Other major exports include cocoa beans, timber, and gold. Our mission is to inspire, educate and provide our viewers with actionable content that enables them to create financial wealth and luxurious lifestyles. Our great hope is that you feel better after visiting our channel and emboldened to live a life that is true to you. Thank you for spending some time with us. Please make sure to like the video and hit the subscribe button to get more valuable content.